Kia ora, welcome to Point of View, your monthly cinema podcast. I'm your host, Tom Augustine. Got a great show coming up for you today. We're talking to Maddy Hakaraia de Young. She is the young director of Maoriland Film Festival. I had the pleasure of going to this festival last year. It's one of the best in the country. They've just announced their lineup for the year. It is really, really exciting, so I'm really excited to talk to her today. We're also talking to the great Lucy Lawless about her directorial debut, Never Look Away. Really, really special documentary about Margaret Moth, the war photographer. That's premiering on Rialto Channel on the 22nd of March. And as usual, we're going to be talking about what's coming up in cinemas, on streaming, and out there in the cinema world. So please stay with us. Maddy Hakaraia de Young is a very good friend of mine and is also the director of Maoriland Film Festival, which is one of the best little festivals in the country. I had the pleasure of going last year and it was a really, really special time. She was a semi-finalist for Young New Zealander of the Year, which I know she loves me talking about. And Maoriland Film Festival has just dropped its program for the year. It's really, really impressive. Thank you for coming and chatting to me today.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Hi. So let's start just talking about what Maoriland is for people who haven't been, are uninitiated.
Yeah, sure. So Maoriland Film Festival is an international Indigenous film festival. We're the largest in the world now. We've been around this is coming up to our 12th festival. But I guess when you wonder what international Indigenous means, it means that we take films from all of the Indigenous native communities around the world. So our program ranges anywhere from the Greenlandics across Sapmi, the top of Europe, through the Americas and the hundreds of tribes that live across those territories, throughout the Pacific and back home to Aotearoa, where Māori filmmakers have a really important place in our program.
And it's operated out of Otaki. Beautiful, beautiful town. And it's kind of amazing because it has this kind of small town community feel, but it also has this global kind of aspect to it.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little breakdown of like the history of how it came to be and why it has that feeling?
Yeah, sure. So Otaki is home to an iwi development strategy called Whakatuparanga Rōmano, which loosely translates to the Generation 2000, and it was a vision to bring back te reo Māori for our community and for our whānau, but also to see our people thrive across all industries so that we could be a really pumping little townie. And so that our rangatahi could stay in our community. So that's the context that we grew up in. And I come from a whānau of creatives. Everybody works in the arts, from theatre to film to event production. And so we made this film, The Lawnmower Men of Kapu, which was directed by my auntie, Maddy Hakaraia, and produced by Tainui Stevens. And it was the first time that our town got to see themselves on the big screen, that it had my aunties in it, my cousins in it, and that film ended up going to 30-odd film festivals around the world. And so at that same time, people were looking for a festival to come to in Aotearoa, an Indigenous festival to come to in Aotearoa, or even in the Southern Hemisphere full stop. And so Libby and Tainui took on that challenge of going, where can we come? Come to Otaki. We'll look after you. We know that our whānau will wrap their manaaki around you. And in those early years, we kind of modelled ourselves on the origins of Sundance. You know, Park City during the year is a town of only 6,000 people, and then it balloons into this massive festival hub. And over the course of that festival, they've seen Park City evolve, and they're looking now at whether or not it can stay there or not.
Totally.
But what we saw for Otaki was an opportunity to bring everybody to our community, for filmmakers to have an experience that they don't usually get to have. You know, they're in a small town, they're connecting directly with their audiences, they're connecting with each other. There's nothing else to do, you know. We don't have hotels, we don't have Uber. You can't get distracted and end up down the road at something else. You're there for Māori land. And so through that, we've been able to build this really beautiful community vibe that turns the whole town into a festival town. So everybody in Otaki is buzzing with stories for the week of the festival.
And it has this feeling that was like nothing else that I've ever really experienced, where like you walk down the street and there's the whole town is converted into Māori land, but you know, you can just like strike up a conversation with this incredible filmmaker, or you can just walk into one of the hubs and experience something to do with virtual reality, or these kinds of ways of breaking the boundaries of cinema. You can, you know, wander to the beach and then come and see a film. You know, you have these programs for younger people as well. It's just such a it feels very New Zealand, even though it has this kind of international element. I guess, is that kind of conscious? Are you working to preserve that element when you're putting it together?
Yeah, I think it's also because it's based on relationships ultimately, and when we make films, we need the whole community to come along with us. Like people. You think about the actors and the directors and, you know, maybe the camera team. Yeah. But then you have the ringawera, the caterers, who are so vital to a production, or the builders. And when you're making films in Aotearoa, you're working with normal people. You know, you're working with the builder down the road, or the seamstress who somebody knows. It's so relationship-based. And so bringing that into the festival made sense for us. Yeah. All of those other programs, like we also have Toi Mataro Gallery, which was because we knew that what we put on screen is so heavily influenced by what the artists are creating and all their visual elements. And so we put all these things together so that everyone can see themselves in what we're doing. Yeah, and I think that's really important as we try and grow cinema audiences in Aotearoa, is for people to feel like it's something that relates to them, and isn't, you know, something that rich people over there do. Totally. I think what I love about going to the movies is sitting in a cinema, watching something together, feeling everybody else around me, and going on that emotional journey together. And you can kind of feel the vibration in the room. Yeah. Especially when it's something that has people riveted, of the gasps or the laughter or the, you know, wriggles as people get uncomfortable, and you're having that experience together. And I think that is something that we have to remember to get people back to the movies. Yeah, I mean, it's a different art form to other ones because it is for everyday people, you know, like that's what its original conception was. And I think a lot of people have lost sight of that. So it's just such a wonderful initiative to bring it here and bring it to small towns. Speaking of the movies, so this lineup is really, really great. There's a few premieres in there as well. Yeah. Do you want to can we get a sneak peek of some of the films? Yeah. So we're really excited that our opening night film is, you hear about special presentations or, you know, media screenings. We're lucky to be able to bring the audience into a special presentation of Korka, Kath Akuratif-Brown's debut film, which will be going to cinemas in June, and will have its big premiere there. But New Zealand audiences can get a sneak peek at Māoriland. Fantastic. With the cast and crew, and I've heard there's buses coming down from the East Coast. I think that's going to be a really special film. Cool. And Hinatu Dell is so incredibly powerful. I'm really excited to see her in a role like this, to be able to helm a feature film. But also bringing Dance Darneen, and who people will remember from the Deadlands TV series and other mahi. So together they're a really powerful pair. Another film that I really think is going to be really, really joyful and entertaining to see is the world premiere of Shrek Kātahi Te Koroke.
Oh, I'm so excited.
We managed to get our whole team involved in this kaupapa, so I'm a Duloc doll, which I'm really excited to have
that's so beautiful.
My own little moment in there. But from what I've heard of the finished cut so far, it is hilarious. It's magical how seamlessly the Reo Maire sits alongside those big tracks
Yeah.
that everybody knows. And I think no matter how familiar you are with the language, you're going to have a great time at that screening.
Oh, that's so great.
We also have our closing night film, Te Puna Ora, is an incredible documentary from Tahiti by Virginie Tutufa. Virginie's been at the festival before with music videos and other work. She makes incredibly visually vibrant and striking work. And so being in that landscape of Tahiti, you've got these beautiful oceanscapes, whales, just incredible landscapes, but it's with a really powerful story of resistance of the women of the community of Moria, which is this, it's what you imagine when you hear Tahiti. It's the white sands, the blue water. But it's also a tourist hotspot, and the hotels want to expand, and with that means that local people can't necessarily get to the water as they used to. And so there's a real tension there between, I think, the luxury of getting to go on holiday and go somewhere pristine and what it means for people who actually live in those places. And that's the theme that continues throughout the festival. Another really massive film that we've got coming is Standing Above the Clouds, which is about the fight to protect Mauna Kea. That film is about Auntie Pua Case, who has really led that movement. And so we're lucky to be able to have their team come through to the festival. And then another one in that documentary space as well is Sugarcane, which is nominated for an Oscar, which is really exciting. But I got to see that film at Sundance last year, and it's about a community who is investigating the aftermath of residential schools. There was a discovery a couple of years ago of a mass grave at one of the residential schools in Canada. And it's led to a lot of uncovering of what actually happened at those schools, both across Canada and America. And in this film, you see the director, Julian Noisecat, and his father, Ed Noisecat, who's an incredible artist who's got really strong links to Aotearoa as well, mending and working out their own relationship. You see this young tribal leader looking after his kids and going, this is what we're going to do to make things right, and showing incredible leadership for someone who is quite young in the grand scheme of things. And all these other community members who've had extraordinarily difficult experiences, just putting the truth out there and confronting people and having really hard conversations. And they weave it together in such an incredible way that I thought I knew this story. Like, this is a story that we see quite often at Māoriland. But I don't think I've ever been so deeply affected as watching that documentary.
I mean, because it has, describing the film, it has immediate resonance in New Zealand. Which I think speaks to one of the wider things that I really gleaned from when I was down there, which is that, so many of these Indigenous stories are universal in a certain sense. Like, they blend so seamlessly. So much of the stories that they have resonances here and all around the world as well.
It's been definitely interesting seeing these films in the context of the Royal Commission into abuse and state care. And one of the other world premieres that we've got at the festival is The Stolen Children of Aotearoa by Julian Arahanga. And so that will premiere at Māoriland on Friday, and then it goes to Whakaata Māori on Monday. So anyone can see it once it's on TV. But I think what will be really moving at that screening is that it is our community. A lot of the people who feature in that documentary are from Ōtaki and the wider Wellington region. And so being able to see them tell their stories and then afterwards have that time together to
that's going to be incredibly
powerful. It is. And I think that's something that you get at film festivals that you don't necessarily get anywhere else is that opportunity to watch something profound and then spend time with other people who have had that same experience as you afterwards and debrief and work and, you know, have whatever it is that you need to do following that, whether it's something that's as joyful and fun and silly as Shrek or as powerful and important as The Stolen Children.
Wow. I immediately feel like a need to get down there like that. It's so great. Oh, fantastic. Looking ahead into March, there's a whole bunch of really exciting films coming up. The first one to talk about is a New Zealand film, one that is showing at Maoriland. It's one that I've had the pleasure of seeing. I think you've seen it too, The Rule of Jenny Penn, which is James Ashcroft's new film.
Yes.
Now, this film is adapted from an Owen Marshall short story. Stars the great John Lithgow, which is an amazing guest, Geoffrey Rush, a great cast of New Zealand performers. It's a story set in a retirement home where there's a very sadistic resident who tortures everyone else who resides there, and it turns into this kind of battle of wits. Did you enjoy this film?
Enjoy is an interesting adjective for it, I think. I mean, one thing I love about James's work in general, like Coming Home in the Dark was such an incredibly devastating, beautiful film. And Jenny Penn is quite different, but has that same intensity and power and messaging underneath it.
Totally.
I think I saw a corridor of James talking about how the film, you know, it's creepy, it's weird, it's funny in uncomfortable ways. It's that like nervous giggle sort of film. But when James was talking about what it means to him, talking about how many of our elderly, especially in care homes, experience abuse in those environments or discomfort, and how it's something that we don't necessarily pay very much attention to, or it's too uncomfortable for us to actually acknowledge, so we put it over here. And I think while it's extreme and absurd and very strange, it does a beautiful job of showing how confronting that life changes to go into a home like that is for people.
And how powerless you are, and how easily the abusers can get swept under the rug by just like dismissing it as like, oh, it's just an old person.
I listened to a podcast recently and it was talking about how when it comes to people who are deemed to be disabled or to have cognitive difficulties or etc., that there's this presumed incompetence. That you because you presume that people aren't able to do something, you're willing to believe that all sorts of other things are true that aren't necessarily true. And I think you see that really strongly in this film. That, you know, that he's asking, Geoffrey Rush's character's asking for help, and he comes from being this like high-powered judge, but is deemed powerless because and untrustworthy because he's old,
and because he doesn't go about it in a way that's like considered like a nice old man or anything. Like he's a bit of an asshole, but in that situation, of course, you would be.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because I think you see that would have worked for him his whole life up till now. But because he's in this new context, all his ways of interacting with people are now irrelevant.
Yeah, totally. And Lithgow, who has, you know, a history of playing terrifying characters, is really scary in this. And nails the New Zealand accent as well. Like, quite remarkable work, really.
It's deeply, that doll becomes an extension of himself in a way that is totally disturbing.
Yeah, really, really disturbing. And it's cool to see Ashcroft on the rise as well. His next film was with Robert De Niro, which is really cool. So,
right? But Jenny Penn's done really well, right? It won awards at Fantastic Fest. at Sitges as well, I think.
Yeah, right.
He's had a huge response internationally to this film in the genre festival space.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be really interesting. I really hope that people make the effort to go on and see the film, because I think
Definitely.
he's carving out a new genre for New Zealand film.
Totally. Very unique in the New Zealand space, which is really great.
Yeah.
Also coming up this month, finally, we've been waiting for it for a really long time, is Bong Joon-ho's new film, Mickey 17.
Yeah.
So are you a Bong Joon-ho fan?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about looking, because I've been trying to go to the movies recently and looking at what's coming out. And, you know, a lot of it is existing IP, you know, it's stuff you already know. And what's exciting about this film, and you can see it in the trailer, I mean, Robert Pattinson is such a kooky actor to begin with in terms of the roles he chooses. But, you know, it's going to be really unexpected and riveting the whole way through.
Yeah.
And while we've been waiting a while, I had a look, and the book that it's based on, that only came out in 2022. So I'm also kind of fascinated by the speed at which
it got
turned around, and how, you know, this is the nerdy part of it, but how that all came to be, because it seems like it's going to be a really powerful film.
It's a science fiction about a man who volunteers to be reprinted every time he dies, and so Mickey 17 implies that he's died 16 times before and been reincarnated, I suppose. And it looks like it's more in the vein of something like maybe Snowpiercer or one of his more light-hearted works. But
with all of its creepy, weird alien beings and
and a great cast, nonsense. And it just looks really, really fun. It's just going to be great to have director Bong back in cinemas, I think. We've got The Last Showgirl coming up, which is Gia Coppola, who's the latest in the Coppola dynasty, to become an auteur. Her film with Pamela Anderson, which is about a kind of aging Vegas showgirl reckoning with that kind of part of her life. Is this one on your radar at all?
Yeah, I think I was really surprised when I first started seeing stuff about it, because I didn't realize that Pamela Anderson was working in this space anymore, or that this sort of role was for her. But at the same time, it kind of totally makes sense. In a way, it's semi-autobiographical, even though it's got nothing to do with her personally. Just that idea of being, you know, when we were growing up, Pam was the hottest actress in the world. And she experienced everything that came with that, being famous in the 90s as a woman. And so to see her come back in this film is incredible. But I'm also interested. Did you see Palo Alto?
I did, yeah.
And that was Gia's first feature, and what I loved about that film was how it manages to it's really incredibly revealing about the world that she's depicting. And it makes it for something that's slightly uncomfortable to watch because of the power dynamics in that movie. So I'm really interested to see The Last Showgirl, because I suspect from seeing the trailer and what I've heard about it, that it will do a similar job of unraveling the sort of machinations around fame and success for women in show business in the States.
And it'll be interesting to see if Gia kind of extrapolates herself from the shadow of Sophia and Chris Francis, and see what her kind of style.
Quite beautiful in the same vein, though, right?
Certainly does, yeah, absolutely. It is interesting also that you mention Pamela's kind of history and the way that she has been exploited. I mean, just recently there was that show Pam and Tommy that came out, which she was not happy with, because she didn't consent to it being made, and then it got made about her. So it almost feels like a reclamation as well, this film, even though it's not about her life, as you say. It has this,
exactly. And I think it's quite something I find quite encouraging, I guess, is seeing women like Pam, who are in what traditionally would have been, they would have been cast as mothers or grandmothers or, not as hot women anymore, of being a woman with her own power and her own interesting story.
100%.
That's really exciting to see.
Absolutely.
And I hope that it kind of leads to some more work for her. It would be interesting
That would
to
be
see
great.
in other
Yeah.
films.
I think she's revealed this side to herself, which is very promising. I think she could really deliver something really interesting in the next stage of her career or whatever that looks like. Yeah. Also coming up this month is Disney's live action Snow White. The trailers did not necessarily fill me with confidence. It's interesting that this has become kind of a culture clash film in America because the lead actress, who is from West Side Story, is not white, and it turned into this big flashpoint thing in America, which is so stupid. Doesn't necessarily divorce from the fact that the film itself is kind of like, why do we need a live action Snow White right now? And you watch the trailer and it's all
the live action Disney films. It's an IP retention thing, though, right?
100%.
It's Disney holding on to their work.
Yeah.
But I watched the trailer, and the bit that jumped out at me was the dwarves.
Yeah.
And
terrifying,
but also why? Like, I suspect that they did the weird CGI thing to avoid issues with representation of actual people.
Yeah.
But it's kind of worse.
100%.
And it also makes, like, in terms of the context of 2025, like, do we need a film about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs anymore?
No.
Not really.
No, I mean, this is the same thing with all these live action remakes, is who would ever elect to go and watch that as opposed to the masterpiece that was originally that's still available to you?
Exactly.
As you say, it's just a continuation of IP, right?
And I think it's like looking at the evil queen character in this. She's kind of indistinguishable from Angelina Jolie and Maleficent. Like, it's similar sort of vibe, but I thought Maleficent was far more interesting. It was a new take on something we already knew. Yeah,
it wasn't just a carbon copy. Kind of deal. Yeah, totally. Also coming up this month, we have a few other films. We have Steven Soderbergh's Black Bag, which is... he just released Presents. He's got another film coming out. This one's kind of like a spy story with Cate Blanchett, Michael Fassbender. Got a great trailer, so I'm quite excited for that one.
And they both, it looks like, killer performances from both of them.
Fantastic. Right? I'm hoping that this is quite a muscular Soderbergh offering. He's a very busy man. We have A Working Man, which is
a Jason Statham film.
Jason Statham film. I watched the trailer and I couldn't tell if he was trying to do an American accent or not, which he should never try and do.
It just looks like The Beekeeper.
Yeah, it is.
In a new setting.
Yeah, 100%.
Which, when I watched The Beekeeper, I was like, this is just an excuse for Jason Statham to have weapons and lots of stunts. And they've kind of shoehorned a story around it. It feels like the same thing.
I had a real weird affection for The Beekeeper. I think I watched it. I watched it in January. It was really hot.
Yeah.
And I went into the cinema and I just watched Jason beating the stuffing out of a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And it was really, really fun. I can't say that this one looks as promising.
They serve a space though, right? Like, it's the sort of movie that you want to watch on a plane or on a Sunday when you don't really want to go outside.
Yeah, low effort, like you don't have to think about it too much. I mean, I think like Statham is one of our more reliable action stars.
Yeah.
Because he does have a gravitas and he does have a kind of he holds the screen in a way that's really enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, and so much energy. I mean, the bit with this trailer, I do feel like you see that entire film in the trailer.
Oh yes, 100%.
But it's extraordinary how many weapons you can fit into one
Yeah,
film.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, what else have we got? We got The Return, which actually showed at the British and Irish Film Festival last year, which is a take on The Odyssey. Ralph Fiennes, very ripped, very
Yeah.
tanned,
A little bit
returning home.
malnourished.
Yes, malnourished, that's a good way to put it. I have heard that one's very meditative and kind of arty and an interesting take on the ending of the Odyssey, which
Yeah.
doesn't get shown on film very much. So
Yeah.
that's cool. We also have another one kind of in the same brand, Firebrand, which has Jude Law as King Henry VIII. It's about the last of his wives, played by Alicia Vikander, who is obviously the one who survived.
Yeah.
So that one is quite an interesting version of that story also that we haven't seen that often.
Yeah, it was familiar in a way of The Great.
Yes, yeah.
Not as comic looking, but
Yeah.
had that similar sort of representation of Catherine as someone with gusto.
Yeah, let's look at this thing that people know about very well from a different kind of angle.
Yeah.
100%.
Which, on the flip side, like The Return looks like it will be a great film, but it does feel like a film we've seen before.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. 100%. Talking about streaming in March, we have a good number of TV series releasing. Probably the one that I guess most broadly is being quite anticipated is the return of Daredevil and Daredevil Born Again. Back in the day when Netflix were doing Marvel TV series, this was the one that had a lot of traction. So it's coming back again, the same cast and that kind of thing. Not sure what that kind of shift from the very dark world of those Netflix ones into something a lot lighter and Disney will look like, but that one's on the 4th of March. Will you be watching that?
Probably at some point. It's not high on the list, but at the same time, I think, it was interesting looking at it going, it's not actually giving much away. I don't know what to I know the concept of that world, but it'll be interesting to see what content is actually in the series.
Yeah, and the thing that really stood out with that show was Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin, and so it's nice to see him back.
Yeah.
On Netflix, we actually have an adaptation of The Leopard, which is, and it was an Italian book that got turned into this very beautiful Visconti film. And so now it's being adapted into a Netflix limited series.
Yeah.
Watching the trailer did not fill me with confidence. I usually would just say just go and watch the original because the original film is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's willing to give it the benefit of the doubt because it looks like it could be interesting in a similar vein to some of the other series like this that they've been able to pull up.
They did do 100 Years of Solitude, which I haven't seen yet.
No, I haven't seen that yet either. I've been a little bit nervous too because
it's beautiful book.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you adapt that for the screen?
Yeah.
At least with The Leopard, it's the story of this like aristocratic family in Italy coming to an end. And, so that seems to lend itself more easily to something like this.
And with Italian actors in those roles. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Less anticipated from me, The Electric State on the 14th of March. This is the latest film from the Russo brothers. It's got Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a vision of the future where there are robots and
it kind of reminded me of Player Ready One.
Yeah. The Spielberg film. Unfortunately, I don't know if the Russos are quite on the level of Spielberg. Watching the trailer, I didn't feel very inspired. But it'll be interesting. That one's getting a streaming only release as far as I know, so that will be dropping on the 14th. The Residents. Now, this is a little bit more interesting. This is from Netflix. Now, this is Shonda Rhimes.
Yeah.
And it's set at the White House. It's a murder mystery.
Yeah, and it looks it's like she's taken elements of English great
Yeah.
comedic murder mystery kind of style,
Cool.
and put it into a deeply American, I mean, the most American setting you possibly could with the White House, with a beautiful cast, and it looks like it's going to be really cheeky.
Yeah, good. And it's kind of a left turn for Shonda Rhimes, like from the kind of more, I guess, like high-level soap that she is perhaps best known for. This feels very kind of comedic, thrilling, mysterious, satirical. So it'll be interesting to see her working in that space.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it is reminiscent to me, though, of other black comedies.
Yeah.
It's got this real kind of...
It's almost like Gosford Park, but with like
exactly.
a comedic bent, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really cool. And then on the 26th of March on Apple TV Plus, Seth Rogen stars in The Studio. This one kind of has like you were saying it's like a Tropic Thunder kind of feel. He plays a producer in Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's kind of as much as we really know about it so far, but it does have this kind of, the presence of Seth Rogen implies that.
And was it Jimmy Knoxville in the trailer?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. So,
a bit gross out, a bit tongue in cheek.
Yeah. I get the feeling that this one might actually be like a sleeper hit. Like it might actually inspire an audience.
Well, looking at the people popping up in that trailer, you know, you've got Catherine Hahn. It looks like he's going to be bringing all his mates along with him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and honestly, of the streamers, Apple TV Plus, in my opinion, has been turning out the best work.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just because I'm deep in Severance at the moment. But no, I'm quietly optimistic about that one. So, Maddy, Maoriland is coming up in March. It starts on the 26th.
Yeah, 26th to the 30th.
30th of March. And it's in Otaki. I cannot recommend going to this festival enough. It's just like the highlight of my year last year was coming down. So
that's great.
I'm hoping to get down this year. Any other kind of thoughts from you about why people should come and check it out?
Yeah, I mean, across those 5 days, that action-packed, there's 130 films and digital works spread across 5 venues. There's something for everybody in there, from kids' films. The Lost Tiger, Chantal Murray's Universal animated feature, is so gorgeous and joyful and clever. But through to those other big films that we spoke about earlier, there's also incredible shorts. There's 104 shorts in the program. And so whether you want to dip your toes in or sit in and watch something really meaty or just hang out, go to the food trucks, go to one of the installations, listen to live music. We've got Lady Shaka as our red carpet night act, which will be really fun. And I think just that opportunity to spend time together and to meet the filmmakers and to really celebrate film in such a unique environment. Why wouldn't you want to come?
100%. And just quickly, the shorts that I went and watched while I was down there were one of the highlights of the festival for me. It's a really, really great space. Maddy, it's been so nice having you here. Thank you so much for coming along and chatting to me, mate. It's
no
been
worries.
So good.
No worries. I love it. Getting to talk about movies,
the best.
The best.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. This month, we're lucky enough to be giving away passes to some very, very cool movies. Thanks to the team at Madman, we're giving away 2 double passes to The Last Showgirl. Now, this film, as you may have heard before, is directed by Gia Coppola of the Coppola dynasty, and it stars Pamela Anderson. It looks really, really special. I am going to be able to see it next week, and I'm really, really excited for this one. We're also giving away 2 double passes thanks to the team at Trigger for Hard Truths. Now, this film was one of my very favourite films of last year. It was on my best of 2024. It's finally getting a wide release here in New Zealand in March. It is the new film from Mike Leigh. It stars Marianne Jean-Baptiste in what I think is probably the performance of the year. and it's a very, very powerful drama. The thing with Mike Leigh films is that they are kind of very small scale, but they speak these enormous volumes. He's a very unique filmmaker. His process of making films is very unique, and the performance that he draws out of not just Marianne Jean-Baptiste, but the entire cast is absolutely incredible. I cannot recommend seeing this film enough. So if you go on the draw, you'll be able to get a double pass for that. Highly recommended. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us today for Points of View. I've been your host, Tom Augustine. Ka kite. Thank you so much.